You know, I've never really been one for exercising kind of above and beyond what I kind of just happen to do in my normal everyday routine. I mean, when I was younger, I did play some sport, and all of my jobs since then have required me to kind of be on my feet and stay pretty active in my day-to-day life anyway. But I've never really been one for going to the gym or doing sport outside of school and when I was a kid, or just exercising above and beyond at all, really. In fact, I would say that over the past 5 years, every single time I've plucked up the courage and obviously the cash to get myself a gym membership, the routine of going to the gym every few days has maybe lasted me a month's tops before all the excuses under the sun come out, and I just sort of revert back to avoiding the subject of exercise altogether again. So back at the start of September last year, when my friend Elliot Bibby suggested to me that we try a challenge where we run 5 kilometers every single day of the month, it's fair to say that my first thought wasn't necessarily excitement. However, I am always up for a challenge, and I guess my inner yes man couldn't turn this challenge down. Now, if I'm being totally honest, before September last year, the last time before that I'd ran a full 5k, I think was about 9 years ago. I know. So because of this, Elliot and I actually decided to make the challenge not necessarily to run 5k every day, but just to get around 5k, whether you run, walk, or just drag yourself around 5 kilometers of distance every single day, but doing it intentionally. Now, thinking back to then, over the month, I definitely had some massive ups and some massive downs. Some days I felt like I absolutely smashed it, and honestly I did. But there was also other days where I felt like I'd completely failed myself. But all in all, I did complete the challenge. I did manage to do 5k every single day for the month of September. And not only that, but I managed to run every single day in September with the exception of 3. 2 of which I walked because of injury, and 1 of which I did a 10-kilometer hike that day, which I think I'll give myself. Looking back on this challenge, doing this challenge was genuinely amazing. I learned so much from it in so many different ways. And I guess it kind of goes without saying that I learned a lot about my own health and fitness, and I guess my own body as well during the month. But looking back from 3 months later where I am now, and giving myself a little bit of time to reflect on the challenge as a whole, I've realized that I actually learned some lessons that I can apply a lot more broadly to my life, and these are the lessons that I want to share with you guys today. So the first, and I guess the most obvious lesson that I learned from doing this challenge was that you can really make progress when you put in effort. Now, I know this maybe sounds a little bit obvious and patronizing, but do stick with me on it. And I guess the reason that it seems obvious is because if you want to make progress, you have to actually do something about it, right? But I guess the lesson I learned here was actually just how quickly you can make progress in things when you set your mind to it. As I mentioned a little bit earlier on, it has been years since I even considered doing a 5k. So when I took on this challenge, I fully expected the first few days to be really tough. I expected my time to be really slow, and I expected to have to stop halfway to sort of heave and huff and puff and breathe, and then maybe walk a little bit of it and then finish it off as quickly as I could. And guess what? That is exactly what happened. However, after just 1 week of pushing myself really hard on these runs, I completed my first 5k completely running it without walking at all. Not a massive deal, but for me that was a big achievement. I thought it was going to take me way longer to get to that point than it actually did. And you know, this just kept building and building for me. After just the 3rd week, I wasn't even thinking about running the whole way. That was easy now. That was the easy part. The difficult thing was for me now getting a better time every single day. And just at the start of the 3rd week, I actually even managed to do a 5k in under 20 minutes, which when I started this challenge, I would never have dreamed I would be able to do. This challenge really has shown me that continual and consistent effort is really the method of progress. Now, the second lesson that I learned from doing this challenge that kind of had a broader impact on my life was that making just one change somewhere can have a huge knock-on effect. Now, because I'd lost my job and because I didn't have much else to do because of lockdowns, for the month of September, this challenge was really my one and only goal. After just a few days of running 5k, I was feeling more confident in myself, so I started doing strength exercises and strength training workouts after my 5k every day. I also found that I started to eat a lot more healthily, and I started to drink almost exclusively water. This is because I was thinking to myself that I don't want to do all this fitness each and every day and not see any results because all I was eating was junk food. I felt generally more kind of energized and energetic throughout the day, and because I was working out quite heavily every single day, I slept like a baby every single night. It really showed me that just by making one positive change, you can have a massive knock-on effect in one area of your life. Something which I talked a little bit about in my video on why you should just get started. If you haven't seen that already, I'll stick a link up here for you. Feel free to check it out. You know, on this channel, I make loads of videos on self-development, motivation, how to get the most out of yourself, things like that. So if you do like this kind of thing, then remember to hit that big red subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. So the third amazing thing that I not only learned, but I would say I actually experienced by doing this challenge was that being vocal and public about your goals forces you to actually move towards them. So I'm definitely going to do a more in-depth video on this concept in the future, but there are more than one type of motivation. You have internal motivations, things that motivate you from within yourself, and you have external motivators, things that motivate you from the outside world. Now, obviously, when it comes to a challenge like this, running 5K every single day, there's a huge amount of internal motivation involved. I have loads of reasons just for myself that I wanted to do this. But I took this one step further. I actually posted my progress of my 5K every single day on my Instagram story. This meant that everyone that I knew that I was taking on this challenge, and it meant that I couldn't really get out of it. If I woke up one day and didn't feel like doing it, I couldn't really not, because everyone would know that. I gave myself this external pressure, this external motivation of having other people realize what I was doing. Because all my family, all my friends, and all my other followers knew that I was doing this challenge, I felt like I couldn't let them down. Which is kind of related to my fourth point, which is that I also learned that having someone specific to hold you accountable is amazing motivation. I had this general accountability that I gave myself through social media, which was absolutely amazing for this challenge. But me and Elliot were doing this challenge together, and we held each other accountable. We shared our activity via our Apple Watches, which meant that we could actually see what the other person was doing each day. We could see their activity progress, and we even got a notification when the other person had finished their 5K that day. Just like sharing this on social media, this meant that every single day I couldn't just not do it, or else Elliot would know I hadn't done it, and trust me, I would never hear the end of it from him. As well as all this amazing stuff, it also just added a tiny little element of friendly competition to this challenge, which in my opinion can never be a bad thing. Oh, let me sort this out. I look like bloody Ash Ketchum from Pokemon. That's what happens when you go on a run and then decide to shoot a video. You end up all sweaty. So last but not least, the fifth and final thing that I learned, I think kind of long term from this 5K challenge, was that making habits a part of your identity makes them easy. This is something that I originally read about in one of my favorite books, Atomic Habits by James Clear. He talks about the idea of, instead of just trying to do something for the sake of it, about trying to make it a part of your identity, to start identifying yourself as a type of person, and then you're more likely to do the thing that that type of person would do. So in this example, after just a few weeks of doing this challenge, after just a few weeks of running 5K every single day, I started to think of myself as a runner, or to think of myself as someone who runs 5K every day. And as soon as you have this internal switch of mindset, it becomes a lot easier to action that habit. Because you think to yourself, well, I'm a runner now, and what do runners do? They go on runs. Not completing that habit would actually go against my identity. And even now, months later, that little part of my identity has definitely stuck. I definitely still think of myself as a runner, or someone who likes to keep fit and healthy. You know, this idea was something that I definitely did understand when I read about it, but I didn't quite know how to put it into practice. But because of this challenge, I've actually experienced it now, and I've also experienced how powerful it can actually be. Again, this is something I'm 100% gonna delve into with a bit more detail in a future video, because it is probably the most kind of amazing and profound lesson that I've learned from this challenge. And I know it's a few months later, but the reason I wanted to make this video now is that I have been genuinely struck by the power of a tiny little difference, something that you change or something that you challenge yourself to do over time. Just 4 months later, and some of the lessons, some of the things that I learned, and some of the things that this challenge did to me have really, really lasted. So I guess if nothing else, if there's one thing that you take away from this video, it's that if you have some sort of challenge you want to conquer, no matter how monumental or how tiny, my biggest piece of advice to you would be this: just do it. Not sponsored by Nike. Nike? I don't know. I'll see you in the next one.